Hey, I'm Sarah Gonzalez. Welcome to the news and why it matters. Stu, what was the top story for you?
I'm well known for my hashtag Tarifageddon.
You are. You are. Most known for
Yes, it's probably the thing I'm most
That
well
was a
known for.
really cool, creative idea you had.
Thank you. Thank you.
Congratulations. on
We've
that,
sold
Stu.
$300 million worth of T-shirts.
Wow.
Just a hashtag.
Good thing you don't have to
Tarifageddon on
share
it.
that with anybody.
I know, I don't. There's no one that would need to be shared with because it was
Right.
my own
We're
event.
That's all you.
I'm gonna get
That's
my
all
lawyers
you.
on the line here for a second.
So I want to talk a little bit about tariffs and how they're working, and also, is there a solution? I think we found an actual solution to the trade deficit issue, and we can talk about that.
Okay, Pat.
I think the caravan's kind of a big deal right now.
Yes.
Even though the mainstream media doesn't think we actually care about it because the election's over, I do.
It's reached the border now. Right?
Yes, they're at the border.
All right, Jason.
The biggest news of my entire life, actually, is that I've decided to sue the Dallas Cowboys and the Jones family for press credentials to every single game, especially the Eagles-Cowboys game, because I really want to see them.
It's a violation of your First Amendment rights.
Exactly, Pat. I'm so glad you
need to
said
be
that.
there.
And
You
I
need
want
to be there.
and not just in the press room. I want to
No.
be. I want sideline access, or I am
Locker room access.
the whole
Sideline
spiel.
access. Yes.
Otherwise,
Does the
again,
Constitution mean nothing?
right? That's what I'm saying.
All right.
Let's be good.
Got a lot to get into before we do that. I want to thank our sponsor, Riduzone. I know we talked about this the other day, but the holidays are coming up, and I think everyone probably at this table, other than me, is going to be indulging a little bit more than normal.
You're really not going to, you're not
Not
going to eat
even
anything
then,
extra at all.
right?
I usually don't.
Wow.
Seriously?
Yeah.
You're such
Well,
a
you must have
disappointment.
amazing willpower.
It took me a while,
Wow.
but yeah.
I would, I think I would call it a disappointment. Is what I would call it.
Yeah.
As a human being, human to human. It's Thanksgiving. You know, this is we're supposed to be thankful for our bounty or something.
It's only patriotic.
I'm pretty sure you're allowed to
overindulge.
break that one deadly sin that day. That's
You're
pretty much.
despicable.
Yeah. Thank you. That's a better word. That's a better word than disappointing.
Well, Riduzone helps me be very unpatriotic and despicable because it helps boost your metabolism and help you feel full, so you're not likely to give in to the cravings. Yes, you can indulge on Thanksgiving. I'm just.
It's the
giving
days
everyone a hard
after
time,
though, where
but
like
yes.
all the stuff is
It
still
creeps
hanging
up
around
on
the
you.
house. It gets hard.
It
And
creeps up on you over the holidays.
5, 6, 7 day weekends are not the best idea.
Yeah, so you need to make sure that you're all stocked up with Riduzone so that can help you, so that come February you're not like, oh crap, I just gained 35 pounds over the holidays. You can go to riduzone.com and use promo code THEBLAZE to get 30% off of a 3-month supply. Do the math, it's like $1.79 a day. That's nothing to invest in your health and your weight. That is riduzone.com. So, Tarifageddon.
Tarifageddon. Well, we have some of the results of what the tariffs have been doing. We've talked a little bit about the economic problems they've caused, and there have been some, but you know, still they haven't. It hasn't been a full plethora of tariffs put in yet, but we've seen some effects from it. More than that, though, I wanted to look at what Donald Trump's idea was. What was because he wanted to solve a very specific problem, which was our trade deficit. That's why we need the tariffs. It's a trade deficit. Here's the latest report. It's from Kiplinger. September saw the deficit reach $54 billion, a 7-month high. The deficit will likely climb 7 to 8% above last year's $552.3 billion total by the end of 2018, higher than the 5 to 6% we originally foresaw. The deficit with China reached a new record of $40.2 billion in September. One of the complaints I've had about tariffs, among the many, is that it doesn't even work to fix this problem when it comes to trade deficits, and it is, it fosters all sorts of other issues. However, I think we should look at, if he wants to solve this problem, there are ways to do it. In fact, there's really only one way. This has really only happened one time in the last 40, 50 years where we've seen a real change in the trade deficit. And let me show you the chart here. You can kind of see where it's we're on the. So this would be the trade deficit going down. Like so, we're coming back closer to zero, right? So it starts on the left side of the chart. At a larger deficit, and it goes back up in a really short amount of time. And that's the policy you're going to want to replicate, of course, to get this to happen in a long-term way. You could see it's a huge difference there. Now, if you look at the next chart, you could kind of get a little bit of context. What it is, it happened right around October 2008 is when that happened. Now, I don't know what policy was switched there. There was something that happened right around October 2008 that made us come right almost back to a surplus, which is a miracle. It's an incredible development. And this is what happens with trade deficits. Trade deficits go down for the United States when your economy is in a crap hole. This is the economic crisis exactly what happened with the trade deficit in one picture. And it's funny because I decided to look at it a different way. And here's another chart. And if you see at the very left side of the chart here, you kind of just get a little glimpse of it where it's coming down and it comes back up towards where we are now. What that is, if you looked at that right now, you could say that's kind of the economy, right? Like on the left side of that, where you can't quite see, that's where the economic collapse was, right? And then we've kind of came back up a little bit, but slowly, and we've improved, and now we're at a higher point than we were. That is the trade deficit chart flipped upside down. That has nothing to do with the economy. That's just the same chart I just showed you flipped upside down.
Wow.
And this is how clear this is. We've also hit a low in foreign investment in America because of these tariffs now kicking in. And it's like, well, we shouldn't be seeing that now. Or the economy's too strong. We should be seeing more people wanting to invest in America right now instead of less. So it is all of this is, again, there's a lot of things we praise about Donald Trump on the show. I think he's done a lot of things that I'm happy with. This is the worst part of his presidency. Forget about yelling at Jim Acosta. Forget about all the other stuff, what he's tweeted here or there. This is the actual policy part of his platform that is really damaging, and it is just so misguided. I hope that a Larry Kudlow at some point can break through to him. I just have very little optimism on that point.
Yeah, we haven't even seen the worst as far as how much goods are going to cost when all of the full effects, the full ramifications of all the tariffs have come through. And that one paragraph that you put up there kind of stuck out in my mind, where it showed how the trade deficit went up over the last couple of months. And I think a lot of that has to do with just panic from a lot of companies that are like, oh my gosh, we have to get all these materials, all these goods, all these things that used to be cheap for us that are made all over the world. We have to get those right now to lock in prices maybe for at least another couple months or whatever. But once all of that runs out, and again, we haven't seen the worst of this, once that runs out, then they're buying all those same goods that used to cost, I don't know, let's say $5, per whatever. Now they're going to cost like $15 per whatever.
And what happens to the farmers? There's so many ramifications to this. When you go from selling China $1 billion worth of soybeans per month to 24 million per month,
Incredible.
that's unsustainable for the farmers. What are they going to do with all
the actual numbers?
Yeah.
Oh my
It's
God.
97% drop in exports of soybeans.
It is unbelievable.
Yeah, and again, we talked about this a little bit, I think, on radio, Pat, when you were in, is that there's a theory where a bunch of these seats that the Republicans lost in the election were in the areas where the tariffs have hit the hardest. And that makes sense, right? And it's just like, I just don't understand it. It's this, in a way, the fact that the trade deficit is going up is an issue with Trump being a victim of his own success in the economy. The economy is strong, so that trade deficit is going to go up. And that is not a bad thing. It's something that is actually a real positive long term. There's a million different parts of that equation where there's more foreign investment usually comes in to the United States when these circumstances happen. So you don't actually lose this money. The investment comes in foreign investment anyway. But it's just like, this is the thing. Donald Trump is not a popular president historically. He's never had a really high watermark, and he does very well with his base, obviously, but he's been between 38 and 48% basically his entire presidency as far as approval rating goes. And he's held on there, I think, largely because of the economy. The economy's been strong.
Yeah, and there's some problems now that are creeping into the economy because of the trade.
Yeah. And if this thing tanks, that presidency tanks.
Oh, it's not good.
Do you think, really quickly, Jason, do you think that he doesn't understand trade deficit and what it actually means, the ramifications of the trade deficit? I know we had, I think it was Kevin Williamson on not too long ago, and he went into this and talked about how trade deficit isn't necessarily a bad, thing in all circumstances.
Yeah,
It's economic nationalism. It's all about economic nationalism. And I think I think that he definitely aligns with this just based off of his background, but I think a lot of it's Steve Bannon. I mean, this is what Steve Bannon was all about, like nationalism in every way, but economic nationalism. It's politics, really. But I also want to point out really quick that trade deficits like this are cyclical, and they don't last forever. So like if you would, like back in the 80s, where was everything made back in the 80s?
Yeah, oh yeah,
Japan.
Right,
Japan. Like everyone's like, oh my gosh, Japan's going to buy the U.S.
Now it's China.
Now it's China. It was funny. Like back in the day, I think when they bought Rockefeller Center for like a bazillion dollars, it was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that. But the owners said, what are you talking about? They gave us way more than it was worth. Of course we're going to sell it.
Right.
But eventually it swung back the other way.
And that is, by the way, the other side I was just talking about. That's where, in those eras when we had the trade deficit with Japan, Japan was dumping money back into the United States, and it was still helping the economy.
Yeah.
So the trade deficit didn't even hurt us then. And the same thing is happening now. I mean, we're getting all sorts of investment, and it's been strong. The tax plan, I think, would help that. The tariffs are hurting it, and we're seeing this sort of those two things war against each other.
And this is what happens with developing economies. Economies that are developing, they can afford to pay their workers basically nothing and just push out tons and tons and tons of products at low prices. That's what China's doing. It's not going to last forever. People are talking about this economic behemoth of China is not going to last forever. Wages are already increasing, and you're already hearing manufacturing places being shipped off to places like Vietnam. Even places like Mexico. Like, I would not be surprised if Mexico is the next China at some point, because they're going to eventually, a lot of manufacturing, if they can fix their cartel problem, their crime problem. Yeah. But eventually China will go the way of Japan. It'll be a developed economy.
And you still have India and Bangladesh and so many others that are going to compete, that you can do things even cheaper. And to your question, does Donald Trump understand this? It's an interesting one. I legitimately do not think he understands how these things work correctly. So, like, I would say Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, it's not that she doesn't understand what the argument is against a $20 minimum wage, right? I'm sure she maybe she's not a great example. Bernie Sanders. I'm going to go with Bernie.
Yeah, that better.
So Bernie Sanders, it's not like he doesn't understand that, well, what about these companies? He just believes what I think is the completely wrong viewpoint on that. And, and I think that's where Trump is. It's the one thing he really believes. Again, reference anyone who happened to read the Bob Woodward book or is thinking about reading the Bob Woodward book. It didn't make a big difference, obviously, in the world, but about a quarter of it is Gary Cohn and others in the administration who come from a more free market background than Trump, trying to convince him to not do the tariff stuff. And if you read these arguments, I don't see how you could possibly disagree unless you're just ideologically locked in cement on that issue. And I don't think anyone is going to talk him out of that. That's the one thing I think he believes. If this doesn't work, he'll jack him up higher, and he'll keep jacking him up. Yep. And then he'll blame that I didn't have him high enough and they stopped me too much. And he'll come up with a reason, because that is it's central to his worldview. And it's damaging. I don't know who could break through with him on that. The only thing is if the economy really collapsed, maybe he would think about changing it. But I don't know.
By that point, it may be too late.
Yeah, maybe too late.
Yeah. All right. I want to get into the rest of the topics, but let's take a quick break. Back in a minute.
So it's hashtag Tariff-ageddon is the place to go. You'll see all the
Before we get into the Migrant Caravan, I want to thank our sponsor, Relief Factor. I know Stu is a big fan of Relief Factor because it's made Glenn bearable.
Less awful?
To work with.
That's the way I like to put it.
Yes, because he is out of pain. I also use it. I was in a car accident several years ago, and I have these protruding and herniated discs in my spine, which is not comfortable, as you can imagine. So I started using it when I started working here. I noticed a difference as well. Jason, I think you've used it as well.
Yeah, I couldn't run anymore after the Marine Corps, just destroyed my knees basically. So I started using it, and now I can actually run like I used to. It's been great. And all veterans actually should look into this.
It's 100% drug-free, which is also a big plus, and it fights inflammation, which is where the real pain usually is. I think it's like 75% of the people who try it buy it again, so it's obviously working for a lot of people. It's worth it to try it. Try it for 3 weeks. Get your 3-week quick start pack for only $19.95. Go to relieffactor.com. That's $20 that you're going to spend, and the odds are in your favor that you're going to be out of pain. It's really worth your time. Relieffactor.com.
I started taking it. I can play tuba now. I can play the tuba.
Finally?
Yeah.
You've always wanted to play the tuba.
I've always wanted to, and then all of a sudden,
that's great.
It's life-changing.
Yeah, it's incredible.
Thank you for your story, Pat.
I mean, lip pain is usually something.
It had nothing to do with lip pain. I don't know what. It just kicked in, and I had that knowledge after taking Relief Factor.
It wasn't like carrying the tuba. You say you actually learned how to play the tuba.
Right. I could just play the tuba for some reason afterward.
It is really a miracle pill.
Isn't that strange?
Relieffactor.com. Pat, the Migrant Caravan.
Yes, the Migrant Caravan. We like to call it a fun vacation. Because invasion is so awful and horrible and racist and xenophobic.
I love when you come on the show.
This is a fun invasion. Look at the fun they're having. I mean, this is awesome that they just taunt our Border Patrol, just climb up to the top like it's nothing and sit there, and then they jump down on the other side. Well, we were assured by the mainstream media, they're not even coming here. They're thousands of miles away. They're like
a lot of women and children.
yeah.
also.
Oh, look at the babies who have
there's a lot
climbed
of
the
women.
fence.
I don't see any babies.
Oh, wait.
Acosta told President Trump specifically they weren't climbing over fences.
Yeah, and they're
Remember that?
Oh, yeah.
That's
Trump lied when he said that.
No,
Right?
well, I mean, they are just climbing to the top, and they're sitting there. That's not necessarily over the fence completely. They
Well,
didn't,
one leg is over.
One leg is over.
they didn't come all the way over and land on the other side.
now. If you
though, I
watch
think.
this long enough, you'll see many of them scale back
okay.
down the other side into America. But we're supposed to be okay with all this. So that's just the first arrival that happened, Monday or Tuesday, of 400 people. And they arrived by bus, by the way. They were not on foot. And now there is, just arriving in Tijuana, another, which is right, like next to San Diego. There's another 922 more buses, and they're arriving. And then there's 3 more caravans behind them. And I guess all of this is supposed to be okay. We're not supposed to say anything. We're not supposed to ask any questions. It was interesting, too, because many of the migrants were at a neighborhood in Tijuana, and the residents were throwing rocks at them and telling them to go back to their own country. Wow. Now, if that was Americans doing that to these migrants, that would lead every newscast, every single newscast for weeks, months. We'd be talking about how awful we are.
That's been one of my biggest issues with how they're saying that just because we don't want illegal immigrants to cross into the country that we're somehow racist or xenophobic, because Mexico has a far larger problem in this than we do. And I've pointed this out before, but their annual numbers of deportations far
That's because they're not afraid to do it.
Yeah.
Right.
They just deport you or put you in jail.
Just like pretty much every other country ever.
Yes. Except
Not
us.
just
What you
Mexico.
do.
Yeah.
That's
And
what
they're
you
never
do.
criticized for being racist or xenophobic.
No, never.
It's just
Never.
It's interesting, too, to see the way the media has handled this in that what they've latched onto is the idea that it was just an election issue. The Republicans don't actually care about the migrant caravan. And so the 2 ways they've expressed this, there's a viral sort of tweet and Facebook post going around that shows how many times Trump tweeted about the migrant caravan in the lead up to the election and how much since. And so it was much more beforehand and much less afterwards. There's another thing, I think it was CNN, went through all the transcripts of Fox News to show that they said the word caravan like 700 times before the election and only 100 times since the election.
Oh my gosh.
And it's like, well, first of all, part of this is chicken and egg, right? Like when Trump tweets about something, that's all the news can talk about. I bet you the same thing plays out with CNN's coverage. I would love to go through their transcripts. I bet you'd see the same thing. They were talking about it all the time too because Trump was talking about it and they were saying how it wasn't bad. And now that it's not an issue, supposedly.
well, and it was breaking news at the time.
And it was breaking news.
It was being formed
gathering.
right then.
Yeah, although I will say, like, it is here. Right? You know, these things are actually arriving. It is a big issue. It's not something we should let go. The problem with that, if there's a problem with what they're talking about, it's the problem of the media reacting to Trump's tweets. That's the problem. The issue is still there. It's still serious. I'm still concerned about it. I know you guys are all still concerned about it as well. We have to figure out a way to deal with it.
I'm not because I'm not a racist.
Oh, that's right. That's right. Of course. That's true.
I say everybody who's not concerned with it, invite 10 of them into your home.
Yeah.
You just sponsor some of these migrants and bring them into your house and don't ask any questions about who they are, what they're doing here, or what they can do at your house to help around the house. None of those questions can be asked. Just let them in.
Great opportunity for Thanksgiving.
Great opportunity.
right?
Yes.
This video kind of cracks me up too. Is that a park? There's like little pull-up bars and all that stuff?
Yeah, there is a park.
What a perfect setting for a pull-up bar right next to the border
Yeah,
wall.
you train, you get ready. I like that too. I will say this, just a recommendation to all of our friends in Central America. Learn to swim. You can swim right around the fence. You don't have to climb over it.
It's
Just
maybe,
swim
what,
right around
50
it.
yards
It's not
out?
far at all.
It's not far.
You can hang onto the fence the whole way. You don't have to swim. You're going to get a little wet. But that's about it. Like, that's actually like much
And
easier.
some of them are, as we see there. It's like some of them got the idea eventually and did go around the fence.
Also, going off what you said, yeah, not only just invite them into your house, but move down, move your house to the border. I've actually been down there before, and it is scary. A lot of the people, you drive around some of these houses, and a lot of people have signs up, saying, if you do cross into my property, you will be shot. I mean, and that's not just some crazy guy. This is like someone protecting his family because they've had the stuff stolen out of their family.
Yeah, they've been living with it.
Yeah, they live with that. Now imagine, like, you don't want anybody to do this, do anything about this. You want to continue to allow the border to be open and for people to just cross over at will. Try living there. Try living there. The vast majority of people, and this is also very infuriating, a lot of the loudmouths on this, a lot of the people that, well, pretty much everyone that is so passionate about having open borders, they don't have to deal with the ramifications.
Right.
Ever.
Yeah.
They live in very, very, well-to-do neighborhoods. They don't live in other neighborhoods that are going to be right next door. They don't live in the poorer neighborhoods where a lot of the people that are illegal are going to eventually move in. They don't have jobs that are going to get taken. I mean, somebody that listening to this might think that sounds racist, but it's just true. They don't have to live with the ramifications of illegal immigration, so they don't care.
Well, it has nothing to do with race. I don't care if they're all Irishmen. You come here the right way.
Yeah.
It's not about race.
Yeah, your first step in the country should not be your first crime in the country.
Right.
And that's not a good way of handling immigration.
And to continually say that all of these people are completely wonderful, brilliant, family people is ludicrous. Some of them are like any group of 8,000 people.
Right.
Some of them are going to be bad apples.
Yes, they're not immune to having some criminals within their ranks.
The answer to this is obviously just some kind of immigration reform. It is ridiculous what it takes to actually become a citizen of the United States, especially if you come from South America. My wife's family is all from Mexico. My father just...
We should streamline.
Yes, my father-in-law just passed away a few months ago, pretty much because he worked himself to death. And I felt so sorry for him because he did it the right way. He spent thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars getting the lawyers, all that stuff to get it done. He spent over 10 years with a green card working that you have to do to actually become a citizen.
Where was he from?
He was from Mexico.
Okay.
So, I mean, he did it the right way, and it literally killed him to do it. I'm like, it should not be this hard.
Yeah.
It really shouldn't.
No.
Have we seen any poll numbers or anything on members of the Hispanic community in the United States and how they feel about this issue? Because, I mean, as the resident Hispanic here, I mean, my grandparents migrated here. One was from Spain, one was from Mexico. And I feel like, there are members of my family who they don't like this. They don't want to see this happening because they're like, we worked so hard.
My wife's family's the same.
Okay.
Yep.
So there are out there. I just wondered if you guys have seen any kind of polling numbers on how they feel. Because to me, it's a slap in the face.
Yeah, and I would take that the same way. Of course, there's obviously a divide there, and certainly the Democrats. It seems like both sides believe the way to win Hispanic voters is to pander to them being able to come here illegally. But we've talked about this forever, Pat, going back to the Pat and Stu days. If the Republican Party would instead embrace a better process for legal immigration and praise it and say how important it is to our society, it is, and make that easier, and you still have a screening process, all of that. But still enforcing our borders, that combination is a winning combination. I think most Americans believe in that combination of policies.
Yeah. We could learn a lot of lessons from the LGBTQIA Quilt Bag Plus group. They didn't harp on being against traditional marriage. They harped on we want to have the opportunity to have same-sex marriage, and they won. If we would have been the same, if we would have promoted the positive instead of accentuate the negative, we would have won this argument a long time ago.
Yeah, great point. All right, back in a minute. Stu, did you finally get to pay someone to come join us at the M1 ball tomorrow?
No, we did not. Actually, we tried to give away the tickets, and the last person, it was actually really cool. The last person was working at a food bank, and so could not come, or food pantry, and so could not come. She was working.
That's dedication.
That's awesome.
That's
and
really great.
So instead of paying whatever $5,000 it was to fly her down here and put her up in hotels, Glenn donated the $5,000 to her food pantry.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, it was actually really cool.
Oh, good.
It was much better than a stupid day with us because it would it'd do much more good.
Well, and that's what the first two people thought too, right?
Yes, yeah.
What they were doing was way better than hanging.
Well, one of them was a Hawaii vacation. I was like,
Hawaii.
yeah, I kind of agree,
Yeah.
honestly. Can I come with you?
But it's tomorrow.
Yeah.
There's still time to bid. Right?
Yep.
There's still time to bid, get in the raffle.
For a free car, Mercedes, that would be nice.
$100 for a Mercedes. That's
Give it a shot.
not a bad deal. Yeah, you can go to mercury1.org/M1ball. We will all be there. Hope to see you there.
Underscore
No, there's no.
Mercury
No, there's not.
/ backslash.
No, there's
squiggly line.
Yes.